So if you love the magic of travel, whether it's adventure travel, cultural travel, leisure travel, a fun cruise, or a short getaway, this podcast is for you. So pack your bags. Here's your host, Colby Jones.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are now into our Northbound, Southbound, one-way directional river cruise topic. Once again, if you want to be a complete expert, watch the whole video, the whole tamale, and I promise you, you will be a pro. That's what I train my agents on. This one is the quick hitter. It's going to take like 2 minutes, and you're going to learn just the very important details about your northbound, southbound, one-way Alaska cruises. Let's go. Whoop! Okay, first things first. What is a northbound, southbound Alaskan cruise, right? We don't really know what that is. Well, you start in Vancouver, and you sail all the way up to Whittier, aka Anchorage, aka Seward. There are 2 ports for Anchorage. Anchorage is up here, it's landlocked. There are 2 ports that the cruise lines use, Seward and Whittier. They're both about 3 hours from actual Anchorage. The reverse is you start up here and you sail down to Vancouver. That's the first thing you need to know. A one-way cruise, either up or down. The next thing to know about these cruises is they're generally cheaper than the round trips. Remember, we have our round trip Seattle, we have our round trip Vancouver, our round trip San Francisco, LA, etc. There's about 4 of them on that other video that I made about it. These ones are generally cheaper because your airfare is called an open jaw, which means you fly from wherever you are. I live in Colorado. You fly from Colorado up to Vancouver, and then you fly home all the way from Anchorage back to Colorado. That's called an open jaw because it's not a complete round trip. We have multiple stops in the way, one of them being by water. That's a cruise. So they're cheaper because the airfare typically is more expensive. The next thing that comes up when people look at a northbound, southbound cruise is which side of the ship should we be on? Now everybody says if you're going northbound, you want to be on the right-hand side, the land side. And if you're going southbound, you want to be on the left-hand side, which is the port side. Once again, the land side. And sometimes, maybe not actually. Let me tell you about it. So, if you're doing a northbound cruise, you're going up, you will have more land. You definitely will. It's going to be about a 60-40, 65-35% more land viewing. However, what people don't realize is, and let's focus in on this, is when you're doing your cruise, you're actually going inside all of these channels and all of these fjords, and you're going to get amazing land viewing on both sides. And by land viewing, I mean waterfalls, glaciers, huge canyons, just straight up. And if you have a strong enough arm, you could throw a baseball or a rock and hit the shoreline on either side of the ship. That's how close you are. But these walls just go straight up. It's amazingly beautiful, so serene. You know, it's just like the most regal thing that you could ever see. It really is. But it doesn't make a difference which side of the ship you're on. Pro tip with that. When you go into places like Glacier Bay, for example, the cruise ship is going to go in and then it's going to pivot. So this half of the ship, the left-hand side, the port side, is going to see the glacier for an hour and a half. The ship is then going to turn and pivot. And now the right-hand side of the ship, the starboard side of the ship, is going to get an hour and a half of pristine glacier viewing. So both sides are going to be equal. Now, why does that really matter when we know that the land side is that other side and we're going to get good views from both sides? The thing that goes unnoticed mostly about cruising northbound or southbound and not on the land side is if you are on the non-land side, the ocean side, you get the sunsets, which are amazing. Yes, I took that picture myself. That's from my stupid crappy camera that I bought back in like 2002. So just imagine what it actually looks like or what it looks like with a real good camera. That's beautiful. I ask people where this is all the time and they say Hawaii. No, that's Alaska. So, you get the sunsets, which the other side's not going to see, but more importantly, that. You see that? That is called a whale. And we like whales. Whales are our friends. I don't know why they're our friends. You know what's really funny is I actually had a dream. It's so weird because I'm totally ad-libbing this. This is not part of my script, but I had a dream last night that I saved an orca on the beach. It came in, there was big waves, and I picked it up, and in my dream I was like, wow, these things don't weigh as much as they actually do. I could never pick up an orca. I could barely pick up a jellyfish, my huge muscles. But anyway, total sidetrack. We get whales. Whales are our friends. We really like them. And you get to see them on the ocean side. That's right, the ocean side. You don't see them on the land side. So on the land side, you're going to get 60% better views. The actual times when you're really going to be viewing it, you're going to see more. The times that you're transitioning up from Vancouver through the Inside Passage, well, guess what? There's not a lot to see. Okay, there just isn't. Yeah, you're going to see some faint mountains off in the distance. You might see like maybe a teeny little speck of a glacier that, is that a snowflake on my camera lens or is that an actual glacier? I don't know. There's not a huge difference there. But everybody wants that land side. And all those people that do, they don't get the sunsets, which are 100% worth it, and they don't get all the whales. Now, is there a right or wrong way? No, absolutely not. You will see more land, you will see more waterfalls, you will see more glaciers on that side. You just will. But with the trade-off, I like the sunsets and whales personally. That's just me. There's no right or wrong way, but that's your pro tip that everybody overlooks. Everybody overlooks it. Now, the next thing that we need to know is how do we get to the ship in Vancouver and how do we get to the airport in Anchorage? Well, Vancouver, the cruise lines typically charge like $35-40 per person to get to the pier. Most oftentimes they go out of Ballantine Pier. That's like 30-40 minutes away. You can catch a cab for about $40, but that gets your whole family. The cruise line is like $30 a person. Huge savings there. Now, on the other side, up in Anchorage, doesn't matter if you go into Seward or if you go into Whittier, they're like 2.5-3 hours away. You can't get there on your own. You must get a transfer. Cab, shuttle bus to the cruise line, or there is a train. The train is really neat. It's very scenic. It's going to cost you a little bit. The cruise line doesn't offer that. So you can either do a cab or through the cruise line. You don't really have any other choice. You're kind of stuck there. So that might be a small hidden cost that you were unaware of initially, is the transfer from Seward or Whittier into Anchorage to fly home. As I mentioned in our other series of Alaska, when choosing one of these cruises, we need to ensure that we have one of the 3 major glaciers on our itinerary. That's right, 3. 1, 2, 3. Did I flip you guys off? I'm sorry if I did. Total cut. Let's 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So you're like, Colby, are you completely stupid? Because you just put up 3 fingers. I know I did. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. So let's count those glaciers together. Number 1, this is our good old friend Glacier Bay. Number 2, we have Sawyer Glacier. Very nice. Number 3 is the good old Hubbard Glacier. All right. But how did I put 4 fingers up? Well, the first thing is Glacier Bay, she's really receding. She was majestic. All right, this glacier was a monster. It filled up the entire thing. Now you have to sail like 30 minutes in just to get to the bay because the glacier has receded so much. Now, we're not going to get political on it, but I've been to Glacier Bay pretty much every year for the last like 20 years. It's receded, okay? I don't care what you call it. You can call it global warming, climate change. It doesn't make a difference. The fact of the matter is the glacier is getting smaller, and everybody knows that. And what does everybody know about Americans, especially Texans? Come on, say it with me. Bigger is better. That's right, bigger is better. And Glacier Bay, she's not so much bigger anymore. Because our lovely Glacier Bay is kind of on the downside of her career. Yep, she's not Betty White, okay? Betty's immortal, Glacier Bay is not. So she's kind of fading away into the distance, and that brings in our 3rd major glacier. That's right, Glacier Bay, Hubbard Glacier, Sawyer Glacier, and then our 3rd major glacier is Dawes Glacier. Right here, this is Dawes Glacier. She's the new girl on the block, and she flaunts it. She says, hey, Look at me, handsome man. I am Dawes Glacier. She absolutely does that. Completely. Just like that. That's Dawes Glacier. Point being, you need to make sure that we have one of those glaciers on our northbound or southbound trip. If you don't have one of those glaciers on your trip, don't book it. Why? Because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. It's just not going to happen. You don't go to a restaurant and order your entree without a side. You don't get a burger without fries. You don't get a steak without potatoes, right? You don't have the choice of not soup or salad. I want my soup or my salad. I want some breadsticks. Come on, what is this place, right? Don't shortchange yourself. Don't do it, especially for $100, okay? That $100 is going to be memories that are going to last you. You're going to talk about it at Thanksgiving, at Christmas. Remember that time we were there? We saw Dawes Glacier. We were at Glacier Bay, and there was the whales, or we saw the seals trying to swim away from the bears. You know, whatever. Because it happens. For $100, yeah, it's totally worth it. And let me tell you one other thing about that. Pro tip. You will never look back and remember how much you paid for it, but you will look back and remember, my God, that was awesome. Seeing those bears, those whales, those seals, seeing the ice, the glacier calve into the water, and you're like, oh my gosh. Those are the things that are going to stick with you. You will not remember how much you paid. If you don't believe me, I want you to think 5 years back, your last vacation that was more than 2 years ago, how much did you pay for it? Do you remember the exact cost? If it was a good vacation, I bet you don't. If it was a terrible vacation, I bet you will. We only do good vacations, people. Our next tip on our northbound, southbound, very similar to our round trip Seattle, round trip Vancouver cruise episode, is the bonuses. Yes, there are bonuses, and you should make sure that you have one when you're picking your itinerary. Those bonuses are Icy Strait Point, Tracy Arm Fjord, and College Fjord. And let me tell you a little bit about each of them. College Fjord happens to be my personal favorites. You have a big... All right, so what are those, Colby? Tell me about those. College Fjord is super cool. So you go through this channel, this narrow, winding, snake kind of channel that's been carved out by glaciers, and dotting the skyline, here, down this channel are glacier after waterfall after glacier after waterfall, and it's insanely beautiful. And sometimes there's this kind of mist that just I don't know, just puts you in this like serene world. I don't know how to describe it. It's very quiet too. You forget that people are around and it's just you. And you just look around and you're like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. And it's quiet, and you forget that there's humanity and there's machines and pollution and all that stuff. And you're just like, wow, that waterfall is really pretty. And it's 1,700 feet long. And look at that huge glacier there. And that's what College Fjord is. There are like 15 different glaciers, each one named after a college. Amazing. Tracy Arm Fjord is very similar to that, except you're tucked in even shorter. So you are right in this place. And they don't have big old glaciers at the top, but there are small ones, and there are waterfalls. And it reminds me of the Norwegian fjords. Nothing against Alaska, but the Norwegian fjords are kind of the king of this. But Alaska's close to home, and it's easy, and it's still really, really good. Tracy Arm Fjord, College Fjord, two of my favorites. The next one is Icy Strait. Icy Strait is very, very similar to that. It's completely untouched by humans. Completely. When you get off at the port of Icy Strait Point, there is a port there, a harbor, but for your purposes, it's the scenic viewing that you're going to do. It's similar to Tracy Arm Fjord, and it's similar to College Fjord. Extremely scenic, pristine, quiet. You just escape the world and just soak in. Just soak in all of the beauty and just all of the nature, and you're just like, wow. God, this is a really cool planet that we live on. And Alaska's right next door. You know, it's right here. It's not actually that far away. And it's going to make you happy. The next thing that you need to know about... Now we're going to start with that. So we've learned a ton already, but let's get into the next thing. Super important, people. This cruise, the northbound or the southbound cruise, you do have to have a passport. That's right. Some of you are like, well, what the hell are you talking about? I thought we had a passport anyway. No. Any of the round trips, Seattle, Vancouver, Los Angeles, San Francisco, you don't have to have those passports for. You don't. You can use your birth certificate, you can use a passport card, you can use a passport if you want, but you don't have to have one. This cruise, you do have to have a passport. Going up, you have to have a passport. Coming back, you have to have a passport. Doesn't matter which one. Make sure you have your passports. Also, super important, your passport must be valid for at least 6 months after the last day of your vacation. So if your vacation ends on June 5th, then your passport needs to be valid through at least December 5th. If it's not, you can still do the cruise. If Customs Border Patrol catches you and they see that your passport expires December 5th and you come back in September, 5 months beforehand, they don't care. Okay? These are miserable people. They have this job, I don't know why, but they're miserable and they're going to make your life miserable. And it's like a $375 per person fine because your passport is not valid for 6 months. Super important. Make sure you have a passport or you will be denied boarding. Make sure your passport is valid for 6 months after the last day of your vacation. I don't care what anybody told you or what you heard. This is legit. This is concrete. Stamp it, seal it, go. One great thing about the Northbound and Southbound cruises is that you can combine it with the cruise tour. So you start down here, you sail up, and then you do the land portion. Or you do the land portion and then sail down on your cruise. That's called a cruise tour. I have a whole episode on that. But the Northbound or Southbound cruises are the only ones that have that ability, that have that option. And if you're ever going to do an Alaskan cruise, if it's a once-in-a-lifetime type thing, then you need to do the cruise tour. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's 100%. That's your way to go. You'll love just the cruise. You absolutely will. But if you want to take it all in, you want the grandiose experience, it's the cruise tour. Cost? Roughly double, but I have a whole episode about cruise tours, so watch that one next. Another really, really good tip for you people that are looking at the Northbound or the Southbound cruises is when you're trying to get that airfare into Vancouver is kind of expensive. There's not a lot of flights. Or airfare home from Vancouver, same thing. Expensive, not a lot of flights. And I know you're thinking like, Colby, I know you got a tip for me, right? I know you do. I can see it in this ugly face of yours. You're absolutely right, I do. Check this out. Whether you're flying home from Vancouver or flying into Vancouver, Seattle and Vancouver are very close. There are so many flights in and out of Seattle every day that there are not for Vancouver. And guess what? The airfare to Seattle is really, really inexpensive, comparatively speaking, to Vancouver. So if your airfare to Vancouver is $500, but into Seattle is $200, well, that's a $300 difference. Okay, great, but how do we get from Seattle to Vancouver? Or how do we get from Vancouver to Seattle? There is a shuttle bus. It runs all the time, all day, pretty much every day, and it's $75. $75. So $500 airfare for Vancouver, $200 for Seattle, plus the $75. $275 versus $500. You tell me which one puts money in your pocket. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That's right. There's a shuttle. It runs both directions. It's about 3.5 hours. Really easy. Highly recommend it, especially if you're getting airfare that's very expensive. Some years airfare is like $700, which is just stupid. No, do not pay $700. Let's fly you into Seattle. Take the shuttle up. Or you know what? Let's get into Vancouver, take the shuttle to Seattle, and fly home from Seattle, and we're going to save $450 a person. It just makes sense. For 3 hours, you're talking about at least $100 an hour. And I don't know anybody that would not say, you know what? I'll save $100 an hour. Why not, right? Come on. Total pro tip. You can make it up.
So that's it for today's episode of Travel with Colby. Head on over to wherever you listen and subscribe to the show. One lucky listener every single week that posts a review on Apple Podcasts will win a chance in a grand prize drawing to win a free cruise. So be sure to head on over to travelwithcolby.com and pick up a free travel gift from Colby and join us next time.